Good morning, my fellow Africans and the world at large. This is Emmanuel Mensah coming into your homes and your mind once again with a message of empowerment and enlightenment. Today is Sunday, the 12th of March, the year 2022. And as the Bible gives, this is the day the Lord has made, and we should be glad and rejoice in it. Today, I am going to speak to you about the topic I raised in my past episode, and that is nature unaided fails. And so we have it as nature unaided fails part 2. In my previous episode, I dwelt on the way we teach children and about how we eat, and how we mold and shape children's life. And the first thing that the children learn in their lives in the hands of their parents is how to eat. So I used the methods and the implements that we use, or the tools that we used in our eating, as a way of encouraging or introducing children into the exercising of their minds. That is just one aspect of the principle or the truth that nature unaided fails. We are submerged in nature. We are part of nature. But human beings, we are given a higher power, or we are given the role of a higher power over all other things in nature. And the expectation of every human being is to interact with nature. That is where we are given mind. In the creation of God, or in God's creation, all the things in God's creation, mankind or the human being is the only entity that has the ability to act, to transform his or her life. And it is a requirement. That is why we are here. And that is why the Bible says we are co-creators with God. So finding ourselves surrounded by all these things, we are given the rights and the responsibility to interact and to move things forward. And that is why in the book of Genesis, God told Adam that this is your garden. You are supposed to tend it and then keep it. So yours is to interact with everything that I have provided. That is why everything came before the appearance of man. And man is to take all these things to make his life worthwhile, meaningful, and a happier one. So nature unaided fails is also another way of expressing the universal law of cause and effect. And the universal law of cause and effect is more or less stated as actions and reactions. Actions and reactions are equal. What you sow is what you will reap. That is the law. And this law compels us that so long as we are in nature, so long as we are alive, surrounded by all these things, we have the responsibility, we have to obey the law, to act. And when we act, the results that comes back to us will be equal to our action. This is not only in the physical activities, and even where this law is actually practical is in our mind, our thinking, and how we follow our thoughts to make action or to take actions. So nature unaided fails. We've seen, or we've looked at how it is applied in how we mold and shape our children. Today we're going to look at it in a broader terms, or in broader aspects. And I'm going to begin with examples We live in a system or a world, a universe, whereby if we analyze what goes on around us or in nature, we will have answers to every problem that we have. And according to the law of cause and effect, or if I would state it this way, that nature unaided fails, for every human being to be satisfied with the food that is provided, it is required of the person to take the action to eat the food. If the food is served and you say, oh, the food is served, I'm just going to sit down and look at the food, you will starve yourself and die in front of the food. But by the law, that your satisfaction will be based on the action that you will take to take the food into your mind, into your mouth. And that is how it is done. No man, no woman has ever eaten for another person to get satisfied. It is the eater that gets satisfied. So that is one. It's just one example. And then if we look at another thing, you can have a bowl of corn, and that is the seeds that you have supposed to sow. You are expecting to have a certain amount of harvest at the end of the season. If you keep your corn in a bowl or in a bag in your room without putting them in the soil, regardless of how your soil may be fertile and regardless of how this corn may be good for sowing, it will be there for the year that you will never have any harvest. But if you put any amount of this into the soil, these seeds will come back to you in multiple, in tenfolds, in hundredfolds. And so we say your action and your reaction matches. Nature, you are part of nature. But nature, your responsibility, the nature of man is to sow and to reap. But if without the sowing, you will not reap. The nature of man is to, or the nature of human being is to procreate, is to give birth to children. But the fact also remains that unless a man and a woman comes together to have an affair, there will not be any procreation. It is a requirement. It is by law. Your actions and your reactions will be the same. In the same way, if you want anything in life, you have to make an effort. So our effort is very important in our lives. For us to move forward, for us to have any meaningful and good life, we have to make effort. And the effort that we put in will determine the results that will come back to us. So nature requires your input as a human being. You are not here just to be an observer in the process, but you are here to be a participator in the process, in the creation process. And nature will always expect you to do your part. And the doing of the part, especially when it comes to the aspect of our using our mind in thinking, that is what is stated in the Bible, that we should ask and seek and knock. The asking, the seeking, and the knocking is you using your mind to pursue a certain challenge, using your mind to seek some answers to a particular problem. And you go on until you receive the answer. The longer you stay on, the greater the answer that will come back to you or you will give to the world will be. And so we say, the bigger the challenge, the greater the accomplishment. So nature expects us to make an effort. We are not here just to be an observer. We are not here just to be people that sits down for things to fall on our laps. But So long as we are on earth here, so long as we are submerged in nature, we are part of nature, and therefore we need to take part in the process. And so, if you look at the societies, as I've always been doing, we're going to look at this based on our races and our societies. Yesterday, I used the Asian, the African, and then the European, the European races. These are the three races that we're going to use. When I say European, I include the North Americans because they are the descendants, or they trace their origins to Europe. So if you look at the three continents, how have we interacted with nature? How have we asked? And if you take a critical analysis, if you sit down and analyze all these things, you will see exactly the result of what I'm telling you, what I am putting across, or what I'm putting forward. And it is time, as Africans, we begin to do this analysis. We begin to do this examination of our own setup. And as the Greek philosopher said, the unexamined life is not worth living. We go about, we cry, we do everything for self-liberation. We do everything that we want freedom. We want to take everything into our hands. But we have to begin from looking into our setup and begin to analyze it against what other people are doing. And it is based on that that we can come out with new ideas, new systems that can match or even do better than what others are doing. So nature unaided fails. And today I'm going to dive into our traditional setup. God gave us our land, and we are to till it and make it work, and then we're going to keep it. But if you look into the African setup, beginning from our forefathers, they sat down and craft our culture, which is based on religion, which is based on superstition, which is based on taboos. So if you look through Africans, our lives, and you compare it to other people, you realize that what we call taboo, what our forefathers have termed as abomination, became a blessing to other people. Not because God loves them and hated us, but it is because of how we have used our mind, how we have interacted with nature. So if we go back to history, we are told that Sir Isaac Newton was sitting under an apple tree, and then the apple fell. That particular incident that happened that day, he wasn't the only person that has seen it. Even before he was born, years and years before he was born, people have seen apples falling. But he took interest in it, and he decided to go about seeking. He go about asking. He went about knocking. And in the end, his efforts brought to the world gravity. But if you come back to the African setup, there are some people too that have sat under trees and they saw the trees, the fruit falling, and they attribute it to otherwise that it may be the work of some gods or some spirits. And so since that, instead of they seeking, instead of they asking, instead of they knocking with their minds, they attribute it to the gods. They attribute to the whatever evil spirits. So you will see that what we will go to the fetish priest to pray, or our forefathers who went to the fetish priest to pray for, or answers, some people use their mind to analyze it to get the answers right away, and it gave them inventions. It gave them discoveries. So if you look at the African setup, there has never been any discovery. There have never been any invention coming from our side because our forefathers set up our society, our culture based on gods. Everything they have to go to the gods to seek answer. So if you go in the Akan tradition or in the Akan language in Ghana, they say they have to go and see Nananom. And so our forefathers sat down all the time, everything, let's go and see Nananom. That's the gods and the ancestors. And whatever they will say, that will be the end of it. And so every situation, every challenge that the universe, that nature brought before us to probe for answers, to seek and knock and get the answers to move ourselves forward, we buried it because the Nananom said it is an abomination. The Nananom said if you do this on that and that, they will not be happy. So we sat down. The African never used his mind to inquire, to do analysis, to probe for answers. So if you look on the African continent, there is nothing that we can show. And this thing, no one has put it in us. It is our setup based on how we have been or we have molded our lives. And that is what we are talking about right now. Today, as I'm speaking now, even now, we're still practicing this. And now we have brought even religion, the Christian religion. As a matter of fact, 99% of Africans are practicing a version of traditional African religion, but not Christianity, because we are doing exactly as our forefathers used to do. And that is the subconscious reality of the African. Let anything fall on the ground. In the same way they used to go and seek the face of the fetish priest or whatever, and even now most people are still doing. Now we go to the priest, we go to the pastors, we go to the men of God, and they prophesied. They make the decision for us. Then you come home and say, "Oh, man of God has prayed for me." So you put your hands in between your laps and wait for a miracle. That will never happen because nature unaided fails. Whatever miracle that you are asking for from any God that you believe in, your effort is a factor. And until you make an effort towards that goal, you will never receive it. And that is where we are as Africans. Look through our setup. What have we been, any African has been able to take upon himself? I mean, dive into it, analyze it, and come up with a solution that this is what I have made. And this is what I have as the African origin. Whatever we have are just rudimentary, elementary form of invention, but we do not have the ability to move it higher because we haven't developed our minds. And it all has to be traced down to our forefathers, how they established and molded and fashioned the African personality, the African mindset. And that is what we need to come to terms with. And as the saying goes, wherever the problem is, the solution is. We need to be conscious of all this. And once we are conscious of all this, we can take actions. We can take deliberate action to recalibrate our individual and racial subconscious mind to a level that all these things that we have not been able to do will be automatic reaction for us and our generations to come. Education can never take us out of this. Education is good, but for education to be worthwhile, you need something for your education to be worthwhile. Education is a tool. It's just like you having a gun, you have a cutlass. But if you don't have the ability, if you don't know how to operate this equipment, you will be as powerless as anything. Someone can actually come from behind, pick your gun, and use it to kill you because you don't know how to operate it. But when you become empowered, when you become enlightened, then your education becomes a usable or a useful tool that you can use to bring forth things. As a matter of fact, There are a lot of people that didn't actually have the formal education, the academic education, but they have been very successful more than people who have had multiple degrees. And we know what is happening in Africa. So education, if education, the academic qualification is really the key, the factor, then Africa should have been successful by now because we have multiple of these qualifications. But it is the other way around. You have your own self. The human nature exists before education. We're only using education to move ourselves forward. So the education only comes in to enhance you, to make you move forward, but it doesn't take the place of your nature. So if you want the education to actually be useful to you, then you have to, mold your nature. You have to change your nature to suit the education such that you can move in one direction. So we go to schools, we do all these things, but we don't have the ability to inquire, to do inquiry, to sit down and probe things. That is no African scientist. Any African scientist that have done anything great only has to travel to other parts of the world. And over there, the environment is different because some people have spent their time and made the grounds for them. And for the fact that an African can perform well outside Africa is also an indication that if we create the right environment in Africa, the same African will be able to perform well. But no one can create it for us. We have to create it ourselves. So the answer to our solution, the answer to the African problem, from leadership to all areas of life, especially we being able to create, is not in education. It's not in university degrees, but it has to come from a certain education. And that education is what I'm offering. That is what we are offering at Eagle Mentality Group. That there is a power in every human being. Every human being is made in or is created in the image and the likeness of God. And our ability to tap into that aspect of us and use that and allow that aspect to move us forward, that is the only key. Our ability to do that is the only thing that can save us. That is what all other people are doing. Imagination, visualization, meditation. These are the tools that are available for us to use to create our life. You are a creator, but you are not an observer. You are not just a receiver, but you are a creator. And whatever you go about, you will create. And so what we are seeing now is that we are doing negative creation. All that we have to do is to change it. And as I stated, nature unaided fails. That attitude, that mindset, that personality that was built upon superstition, upon taboos, upon religious beliefs, that has no bearing with our current generation, has to go. They have to go. And we have to reform. And that is why the Bible says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. The human being is evolving, and we keep on evolving. We keep on evolving. So our minds have to be renewed. Our mind has to be renewed. So the renewal of your mind is the constant evaluation of the thoughts and your actions, your emotions towards your goals and your aspirations. And that is what we need to do. Nature unaided fails. There is something in our setup. I have said it the other time, and I will say it, and I'll continue to say it. There is something in the African setup that needs to be addressed, and that is we being conscious of the fact that we are here as the images and the likeness of God. Whatever you want to call it, energy, infinite intelligence, Spirit, God, Allah, whatever you want to call this, the fact is that there is a certain force that is in and around us, that is moving us, and our ability to turn to this power in us and allow it to come out of us as a seed spring forth, we will not move forward. Ideas, revelations, inventions will come to us. And this has to be done by the correct use of the mind and by knowing and applying the truth, the principles that governs our subconscious mind. The human being is not an object. I've been saying this all the time, but you are here for a purpose. There is something that God has placed in your hand at the center of you, and that is your purpose. And if you're able to identify that purpose and work towards that, you will be successful. And all other people around you will benefit from you. And that is your calling on earth. So it is time for the African to rise up and to be aware of the law of cause and effects. Or as I stated it, that nature unaided fails. We have to be aware of the fact that whatever we see around us, whatever we have, until we put in effort in our thoughts, in our minds, and then it translates into our physical act effort, we will not achieve anything. Physical effort without mental effort is nothing. And that is why we are toiling. Africans, we are toiling. We are doing everything hard. But we are not getting the results because the efforts we are doing on the outer is greater than what we are doing in the inside. But it is the inside that the creation actually takes place. So we have a lot of things around us. Instead of us calling other people to come and help us, we have to begin from the ground. One key thing that we have now, God has blessed Africans with sunshine. And now, the only thing that Africans we can talk of is that the sun is becoming too hot. The hotter it gets, the greater opportunities we have. We are already in it. There is nothing we can do about it. But whatever God presents, whatever nature presents to you, it is an invitation for you to rise up and begin to probe. So the biblical statement that we should ask, seek, and knock is what we are talking about. There are inventions, there are wonderful things in the African sun that the world is waiting to receive. And if we don't get up to work on that, to make the discovery, other people will travel from far away to come and make the discovery and even take it away from us that we will not be able to use it. We'll be slaves to that. So nature unaided fails. In as much as if you don't take the food into your mouth, you not get satisfied. It is the same way that if you don't take the step towards whatever you are looking for, you won't get it. If you don't make inquiry into situations, when something happens around you, it is not the work of any God. It is not the work of any evil spirit. But it is the invitation from God. Take interest in it. Begin to move towards it. Begin to think. Ponder over it. And as you think and ponder over it, the ideas and all the answers will be revealed to you. And that is when you can shout and say, Eureka, like Archimedes, Eureka, Eureka, I have found it. You have found a solution to one of the Africans' challenges. So as I bring my message to an end, I still want to make this plea to all my African brothers and sisters that this is the time, it is time for us to become awakened to our indwelling powers. God has given us power, just like any other person. But we have to be conscious of it. And as I've said, so long as there is electricity running in through your lights, your house, you have the switches, you walk into your house, and so long as you remain or you are ignorant of the fact that unless you press the switch, there will not be light in your house. You will sleep and die in darkness. But when you become conscious and awaken to the fact that the switch is there for you to control the light, to switch it on and switch it off, then you have power to enjoy electricity. And it is the same way. The power that God has given to us is lying in us dormant. And it is our responsibility. It is our duty to ignite it. Until that, Nature, unaided, fails. Actions and reactions are equal. And our results, our life will always mirror the actions that we are taking, both in thoughts, in the mind, and on the outer. Thank you very much for your time. And once again, I say, may the overshadowing presence of God that keeps the stars from falling and the planets in their orbit from clashing with each other keep you, lead you, and direct you in all areas of your life as we all forge ahead, working towards the appearance and the realization of the new Africa and the new black race. And my name is Emmanuel Kwejo Mensah, the co-founder of the Eagle Mentality Group. At Eagle Mentality Group, we dedicate our lives and our everything to the propagation and the transmission of the knowledge and about the power of the subconscious mind and the complete application of the principle of subconscious mind for self-fulfillment, for us to come to the point that we have the ability to raise our finger and say, I am a child of God and I can do all things through Christ in me, which is your subconscious mind, who strengthens me. Thank you, and God bless you. Bye-bye.